Hold on.
Yes, on stage. Happy face. Love you. Send. Okay. Don't fall. I'm sorry. That was so rude, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, you could save the texting for later.
Okay, all right. Anyway, well, I didn't know how that joke would go over. Anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. But before I start, how many people have one of these in their hands right now? Let me see them. Turn them on like lighters. Look at that. Whoa. It's like lightning bugs. Turn around and look at that. Okay, so how many people have texted in the last minute? Come on, hoot and holler. Let me hear you. All right, how about last 5 minutes? Come on, 10 minutes since we started? Is this a texting crowd? All right, just want to make sure. Let me organize myself here. All right, so texting's wonderful, isn't it? Don't we love it? Isn't it the greatest thing? So let's look at some of the numbers before I get into things. Who texts? Well, about 70% of adults text, and that number is slowly rising. But the obvious one, about 90% of teenagers text. And I believe that the other 10% don't have phones yet, and when they do, it'll be 100%. The next one is number of texts per day. Pretty interesting. I don't know if you can see that, but adults, roughly about 10. Boys, age 14 to 17, around 30. And girls, yes, 14 to 17, you're texting about 100 a day. So girls, if you wake up at 6 a.m. and go to bed at 10, you're probably texting every 10 minutes. And I do believe that this is light. Do the girls agree? Okay, good. And what do you text about? Well, as you can see, you chat, you make plans, and really small on the bottom there is you check in with your parents. And then last one, and this is the one that blew my mind, and I'm dating myself, and I'm not afraid of age, I'm 42, and this is the one that really got me. That if you would rather text or call, look at that number. 71% of you would rather text a friend than call a friend. And that's really shocking to me because as a teenager, I was attached to the phone. My mom always wanted to get me off the phone, and again, just so you all know, this is what a phone looked like when I was a kid. It was attached to a wall, and it had a long cord. Actually, it had like a 10-foot coil, but you give it to a teenager, and about 2 months later, that wire probably stretched out to about 25 feet. Because it was in the kitchen and everybody could hear you, so you'd grab the phone. In my house, I'd walk down the stairs into the basement, I'd go into the back room, and I'd shut a door. And as I was talking on the phone, I could feel the wire moving because people were tripping on it, or my mother was pulling it away from me. But it doesn't matter, teenagers love to talk, but what's happening is we're talking a little bit more with our thumbs now than we are talking with our mouths. And just to tell a quick story, I was out of town, I was at a conference, and I went to go have dinner and do a little bit of work. And when the maitre d' or whatever sat me down, it wasn't fancy, but they sat me down, I was next to a group of teenagers, mostly girls, sitting at a table, and I thought, oh, they're going to talk aloud, no problem with that, but I wanted to get work done. But as I sat there, I noticed an uncomfortable silence. And I looked next to me, and they were all sitting there, but they're doing this. No one was talking. They were all texting. And my question is, who were they texting? They were all together. So I'm just kind of curious, show of hands, has anybody texted somebody who's sitting right next to them and not talked to them? Whoa, turn around, look at the hands. That's awesome. Well, I don't know if that's awesome. That's kind of freaky. So there's a website called Discovery Girls, and they're a tween girl community site. They've got lots of stuff happening. It's great. And they asked them, would you rather text or call a friend? And these are a lot of the answers. Texting is cheaper. I thought that was an interesting one, that they're concerned about their parents' phone bill. There were other things like the phone is more personable, but I have to say that it leaned more towards texting. They really like to text. One of them, though, that was interesting is that a girl said that it can get awkward on the phone. And that's kind of, I was like, really? Why is it awkward on the phone? But then the last one was this one. This girl didn't like anything. She said that technology can end a friendship. And we giggle, but if I last remembered it, we're not friends with technology, we're friends with people. So can technology end a friendship, or can a friend end a friendship? And my thought was, and she went on to talk a little bit about it in her post, but what really happened is she got into a fight with a friend over texting. And rather than call that person or go speak to that person, her friendship ended. And that goes back to being awkward when talking. And I think what is starting to happen is that we're hiding behind our thumbs and we're losing the skills to talk face to face. And so as I move through this and keep talking, and as I looked at it, what's happening is that texting isn't the problem. It's part of the problem is that we're distracted. I often call us a distracted nation because we have so much stuff happening. Anybody watch SportsCenter here? Anybody, guys? So, you know, you're watching SportsCenter, you got your main thing on the screen, you got stuff coming down the left, you got a ticker on the right, and there's stuff flashing at you. Meanwhile, you're probably watching something on your computer. You've got all these things happening, and we're distracted. It's very hard to pay attention. And with that, it's very hard to listen. So there's a great guy by the name of John Medina. He wrote a book called Brain Rules. And what he basically says is that our brains cannot multitask. Yes, we can walk down the street and chew gum. I can walk and talk right now, but that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about paying attention. We simply cannot do it. And how many of us sit when we do homework? We've got our homework in front of us, we've got our phone, we've got music, we've probably got like 8 chat windows open, we've probably got, you know, Facebook open, and we've got all this stuff going on, and what his whole thing is that we can't pay attention, which I suffer from it myself. So what's happening is that we don't listen anymore. We hear, but I don't know if we actively listen. So for instance, if you're sitting in your room doing your homework and your mother or father's talking to you, you can hear them. Yeah, but you're not paying attention. And it's happening, it's not just teens, it's everybody. It's really happening to a lot of people. And what happens with listening, and this is, I truly believe this, and I'm going to get into a story real quick, that listening is very, very hard. There's about 400 people in this room, and there's one person talking, which means there's 399 people listening. There's more listening going on in this room right now than talking, and you all listen differently. We have our own filters. Some of you are judging me right now as you listen, and that's fine, it's natural, and that's what we do. We judge when we listen. You may not like my shoes, you may not like the tone of my voice, you may not like me talking about texting. But it's natural. But what's also starting to happen is that we're judging texts. And you know, how much meaning can you put into a 160-character text? And this is what I think is a problem today. And what's happening is, how can you tell inflection through a text? How can you tell emotion? How can you tell sarcasm? So here's a little exercise I did, and I'll read these because they may be hard to see. Somebody texts a friend, "How's the party?" And the friend says, "I'm having so much fun." Well, could they be saying, "I'm having so much fun"? Or they could be saying, "Ugh, I'm having so much fun," right? You really can't tell what they're saying. Another one could be, "You stained my shirt." I just made these up randomly. And there's an exclamation point. Obviously, this person's mad. And they said, "I'm so sorry." There's no sad face there. And they might have said, "I'm sorry," or "I'm so sorry." Again, hard to tell what the conversation is. And then the last one, and this actually happened, I read an article, this happened to somebody, that her boyfriend decided to tell her for the very first time that, "I love you." And he said it through a text. So what did she say? She said, "That's so nice." Now, all guys, here's how she could have responded. "Oh, that's so nice." Meaning, or she could be like, "Oh, that's so nice," right? So who's to know what happened in that conversation? So what I'm getting at is that we really are spending a lot of time texting, and we're losing the art of conversation. This is why that girl felt so awkward, right? She felt really awkward talking on the phone. But you can't text in a job interview. You can't text your way out of a speeding ticket. We really need to continue to learn these skills to speak, and more importantly, we need to learn how to listen. So, anybody go to Crossroads? How many? Can I hear? All right, there's not that many of you. I like this saying, I'm sorry. When we rely on our thumbs to do the talking, we lose the ability to listen. That's sort of the whole crux of what I'm talking about. So I taught at Crossroads for 12 years. And all the Crossroads people are like, who is this guy? But I did. I taught in the Human Development Department, and I taught mysteries. And the mysteries class is a 12th grade class. And basically, I sat with a group of seniors for 2 hours a week, and we would talk. We would talk about what it meant to be a senior. We would talk about what it meant to apply to college. We would talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We would talk about anything that was going on in their lives. And what we did more than talk is we learned how to listen. And the program is centered around something called Counsel. And Counsel, it's ancient. It's been around for thousands of years. You know, before there was telephone and before there was TV and there was internet, people sat around a fire and they told stories. And that's really what Counsel is based on. And Counsel has these 4 intentions. And the Crossroads people probably know what I'm talking about. And the intentions, we call them intentions, and we don't call them rules. You can't have a rule in a conversation. We have intentions. And the intentions are pretty simple. Speak from the heart, listen from the heart, be brief, and be spontaneous. Easy, right? It's actually really, really hard. It's very hard for us to listen from the heart. As I said earlier, we judge when we listen. It's normal. We also don't always have our ears open to hearing exactly what the person is saying. We may be, thinking about what they said and how that upset us, and then we're thinking about what we're going to say back to them. We're really not focused and actively listening. How about speaking from the heart? Very hard. Sometimes we censor ourselves. That one girl, there was one girl, just real quickly, who in the Discovery Girls forum, she said that she likes to text because she can edit what she says. She writes a text, and then she sits back and she reads it over, and she edits it, and she changes it, right? I mean, is she really speaking from the heart right there? Is she being open and honest? She's censoring herself. And what she's also not doing, she's not being spontaneous. And being spontaneous when you talk in a conversation sometimes is hard. And then, of course, being brief, which is one that I suffer from, obviously. And my wife tells me all the time. But being brief is hard. I've been practicing counsel for 15 years, and I don't have all of these down yet. But it's a wonderful, wonderful program, and I'll tell you a story that happened to me at Crossroads in one of my classes that kind of puts this together and why I think this program is so wonderful. So it was senior year, obviously, and I'm sitting in class. It's the first day of class, and a bunch of kids are coming in. I have no idea who they are because I really only taught seniors, and I was part-time, so I wasn't on campus. Kids are filing in, they're sitting down, and then this guy walks in. Let's call him Dave. Dave walks in, and he stands there, and he points at this other kid. We'll call him Jake, and he says, "Jake's in this class? I'm not doing this." And he turns around and walks out. And I'm like, oh, great. Great way to start the year. So I look over at Jake, and he's like, I don't know. So, I'm waiting. A bunch of girls come over to me, and they say, oh my God, Jake and Dave have hated each other since 7th grade. They can't be in this class together. Please don't have them in this class together. It's our senior year. It's mysteries. It's going to be horrible. And I said, oh, this is good for counsel. And they all moaned. I ran out. I got Dave. I brought him back. So I'm being spontaneous. And I brought him back, and I sat them both in the middle of the room. And the rest of us circled around them. And I put a talking piece right in the middle of them. And I said, this is bold, I know. But they're seniors. They've been doing counsel for about 6 years if they started in middle school, so they know what I'm doing, hopefully. And I sat them down, and what I did was called a witness council, or a fishbowl. Basically, all of us on the outside would sit and watch these two guys work it out. And it was pretty intense. So they're sitting there, they're staring at each other. They both hate me at this point. And I put the talking piece in, and I facilitated the discussion. I said, when did you guys start disliking each other? And it was silent for like 3 minutes. And that 3 minutes felt like an hour, and everybody's shuffling, and no one knows what to do. And finally, Jake picks it up, and he says, I don't hate you, you hate me. Puts it down. Dave picks it up. He says, I don't hate you, I'm just still pissed off at the prank you pulled off at my bar mitzvah in 7th grade. So there's a little laughter, right? But it was true, and it was very, as an adult, it was very touching. So then they talked. They talked for about an hour, and they realized how silly their feud was, and blah, 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 blah. And it was a loving moment. Some girls were crying. Everybody was laughing. But it had its moment. And we witnessed the council, and we all kept coming back to it, saying, here's what they said, here's what they said. And this program that they have at Counsel is just and at Crossroads is invaluable because these kids are learning how to listen and speak from the heart. And if we continue to keep looking down like this and talking this way, I think it's going to be a lost art. Now, the program isn't just at Crossroads. It's been there for 25 years, but it's also, there's an organization called the Ojai Foundation, and they have it with a partner called Counsel and Schools. They have Counsel in 60 LA Unified schools right now, and it's going all over the world, and it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. I ask you today, because we're defining ourselves and we're considering things, should texting really replace real, authentic, deep, emotional conversations? Should we really use it as a dialogue tool, or should it be used for what it was intended for, which is, hey, I'm going to get a pizza. Will you come join me? So as you leave today, or as you talk with friends today, and you're out here, you know, during lunch and during break, I kind of challenge you to put your phone in your pocket and go talk to another human being here today. And as you define yourself as to who you are, I want you to ask the question, are you a texter or are you a talker? Thank you.